Hey everyone, just like last year, I'm going to be making a favorite metal albums of 2017 list, though hopefully it'll be a full-length version this time. Not much else to say here, except I do have another video in the works in between then, by the way. What the hell's that camera doing there? Wait a minute, you want me to do another countdown? I don't know, it's been so long since I've done one of them. I don't think my editing chops are up to speed, and there's all that video grabbing stuff I have to worry about. I'm certain that's out of date, but... Alright, I'll do it. So let me get cleaned up first, okay? Don't call it a comeback because I'm probably not sticking around. Or I might, who knows? Boss battles tend to be among the most fun experiences I have playing video games. Most of the time, it's the part of the game that's the most engaging and the most satisfying to get through. But every once in a while, you encounter one that just misses the mark completely and becomes a chore more than anything else. So for my first video game countdown in years, I'm going to be looking at the boss battles that I enjoyed the least throughout all my time playing video games. They could be poorly programmed, overly tedious, overly difficult, or just had something about them that didn't sit well with me. What they all have in common was that they all hampered my experience. So let's not waste any more time here. Ladies and gentlemen, the comeback that no one was clamoring for. For gaming's first couple decades of prominence, 2D gameplay and graphics were the norm. But as the medium evolved and 3D gameplay became possible, a lot of the franchises of old adapted as such and didn't return to their roots until enough time had passed and enough nostalgia had been fostered. The first game to take this approach that I remember from my youth was New Super Mario Bros. And it wasn't just doing cheap retreads of earlier games either. Its boss battle arc starts off in an interesting way by having Bowser as the first boss. Okay, so they're obviously going to bring him back for the finale, but let's see what they keep us busy with in the meantime. Wait, what? There's nothing wrong with this battle from a gameplay standpoint, but this gets on by virtue of being quite possibly the laziest boss idea in gaming history. They just took the most common enemy in the franchise and made it huge. It doesn't make sense from any angle. It would only make sense as a first boss, yet Bowser already filled that role. Not to mention Worlds 2 and 3 had more interesting bosses that both fit the themes of the worlds they were in. With the giant Goomba, it's like they just couldn't come up with anything better. It's nothing that really justifies any outrage, but it just felt really uncreative. The Mega Man games are well known for being tough to beat, as was the norm for games at the time, but most of them are fondly remembered nonetheless. Getting the timing right of when to take shots at a given boss tends to sit at just the right length of time for it to be challenging and still be fun. So when a boss takes too long to reveal its weak spot and you can only deal a small amount of damage before you have to repeat the process, the experience will inevitably take a turn for the worse. And therein you have the reason why the Yellow Devil is so infamous. The MO of this blob of bile is to charge at you piece by piece and then reveal its eye to fire projectiles at you, which is the only time you'll be able to deal any damage to it. And this is a process that goes on for a long time. And on top of all that, memorizing which piece is going to come rushing at you is a massive guessing game that proves to be frustrating more than anything else. I mean, yeah, you can take advantage of a glitch to beat it in seconds, but if you don't feel like being cheap, you're in for a real tedious battle. Castle Crashers is a game that's often brought up when discussing the best indie games out there, and rightfully so. It's a really exciting game that expertly draws upon the best beat-em-ups of yesteryear, while showing off that quirky art style and over-the-top sense of humor that a lot of great indie games have. Most of its bosses are great, but given the topic of this list, you probably know I'm here to talk about the sore spot. A big, chilly, festering sore spot that laughs way too much. The Ice King.
Oh, hey kids, fine day for a picnic.
No, not that one, this one. You know the old cliche of ice levels always leaving you with screwed up controls? Well, imagine a boss battle where having an icy terrain is just one of many irritating things about it. This big blue ball bag also has a ton of HP, teleports incessantly, and spends the whole fight laughing at your frustration. I've finally done it. I finally found someone whose laughter sounds more irritating than my fake laughter from those old videos of mine. It's not necessarily a hard boss battle, but compared to this game's other bosses, this one's supremely annoying and drags on for what feels like forever. This is a boss battle that'll definitely make you feel satisfied when you're through with it, in that you'll be saying, thank God I don't have to put up with that shit any longer. First bosses, more often than not, are very important pieces to the puzzle of a game. Unless it shows up late, it'll be what really demonstrates what you need to do throughout the game and sets the tone for what's to come. So when the first boss of a game is not only overly difficult, but actively goes against what you'll be doing later on, it's safe to conclude that it didn't have much thought put into it. And probably the worst example of this comes from the Game Gear version of Sonic 2. Even before the battle starts, the way you actually start the battle is vague and mind-boggling. You have to rush off a cliff, and that's when Robotnik grabs you and drops you off near this dollar store Sarlacc pit. You have no means of damaging it yourself, so what you have to do is dodge these balls that come at you in waves, Medusa head style. The issue is that not only are the rates in which they bounce completely random, but the small size of the screen makes it so that you have to keep your focus razor sharp in order to dodge them. Not to mention, you have to do all this knowing that one mistake will be your last because there were absolutely no rings in the level before it. Take one hit, and you die. But possibly the most senseless design choice stems from the fact that if you press the down button, the terrain will force you into the jaws of the antlion and you die instantly. That's right, just pressing down, even by accident, will force you to start over. What were they thinking? Postal 2 is not a game that you play for any great storytelling or seamless gameplay. It's a game that you play when you want something crude. It's a moralizing snob's worst nightmare. Its main novelties are the ability to hack people's limbs off and piss on their corpses. It's meant to tickle that same morbid nerve that gets tickled when you watch footage of G.G. Allen. It's a lot of fun, but it's not exactly a masterclass in game design, and its boss battles are one of the things about it that don't hold up well. Both of its expansion packs, Apocalypse Weekend and the far more recent Paradise Lost, have a fair number of bosses by FPS standards, but the dude's ex-wife going full Kill Bill on him in Paradise Lost is the only one that I can really say I like. And the worst of them came in the form of its second cheap celebrity cameo, Zack Ward.
I am Zack Ward, leader of the Farsi clan here at my wondrous Winter Wonderland compound and world-renowned actor extraordinaire.
Yeah, I can't say I'm familiar with your body of work.
Ward was noteworthy for playing the Postal dude when Uwe Boll turned the game into one of his notoriously abysmal film adaptations. Years later, when Paradise Lost was released to sweeten the deal on the game coming to Steam and to undo the damage that Postal 3 did, Ward made a cameo as one of the many people the dude winds up pissing off. Which was probably a bad idea, considering he's flanked by countless mooks that fire at you long before you have any time to react. More often than not, there will be a time where the lackluster programming completely screws you over in some way, whether it be blowing an opportunity for you to gain momentum or winding up on the brink of death because several minions targeted you at once. This is a battle that showcases all of the worst aspects of Postal 2's bosses. Choppiness, tediousness, the lack of room for error, and just generally being unsatisfying. You ever play a game that's fairly smooth sailing at first, but then somewhere along the way you run into a massive difficulty spike early on? Well, all of us who grew up playing Pokemon sure as hell did. Ask any Pokemon nerd who their least favorite gym leader is, and Whitney is usually a name you'll hear really fast. Take it from someone who experienced it firsthand, she was a prime source of frustration for kids everywhere. She only has 2 Pokemon on her team, the first being a fairly easy to deal with Clefairy, but the real challenge here is her absolute monstrosity of a Miltank. I swear, this thing came straight from the depths of hell. It can take hits like nobody's business, deals out tons of damage, and should your Pokemon be the opposite gender, it can use Attract and make it so that you'd have to leave the ability to do a single thing to it up to a digital coin flip. And God help you if you wound up picking Cyndaquil as your starter, because if it goes on a rollout streak, it'll go down in 2 or 3 hits at the absolute most, and even for those that aren't vulnerable to rock-type moves, just one charged up rollout will make your team fall like dominoes. Unless you spent a lot of time level grinding, you'll likely wind up barely getting by if you win at all, because this comes at a point in the game where your options against her will be limited. She doesn't even show any mercy in the remakes. And let us not forget how she reacts to losing, by throwing a massive temper tantrum. Well, at least she's not blaming her loss on some unsubstantiated conspiracy theory. So y'all remember the good old days of the Countdown community, right? How we all had these trends everyone would follow and made all these videos like those hated characters lists that everyone would find some obscure character to wail on. Well, you may remember who my whipping boy from those days was. Cut that out, we're not doing that, I'm not 15 anymore. Let me make it clear for anyone who may still take my old videos too seriously. Galleon is not a bad character. I couldn't even really deny that back when I was a bored teenager. I, like anyone else playing the game, wanted to see him get his just desserts, but I wouldn't exactly call him a blemish on the game. He's one of the most well-written RPG antagonists I can think of off the top of my head. He's shown to have redeeming qualities and a clear, understandable reason for his descent into depravity. At this point, he's letting his ego do the talking, yes, but that's a thing that happens in real life. Not to mention, his voice actor is an absolute blast to listen to.
Oh, then the time has finally come.
Galleon, yes!
Amazing, isn't it?
I'll say. That being said, there is one thing about him that still grinds my gears to this day, and you can probably guess what it is. The first battle against him, or rather an illusionary copy of him, was quite good, but the real grand finale was essentially a rehash of the first bout, just with several glaring flaws added that are impossible to overlook. It's many times more difficult than the first battle, and not in an organic way either. There will inevitably come a point where your team will be so battered by his overpowered attacks that building any momentum against him winds up becoming like pulling teeth. And while that's going on, your ears get routinely assaulted by him repeating the same 3 goddamn words over and over and over again. Here, let me summarize this battle for you.
Hey, wanna hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Time to die, time to die, time to die.
Let's put this into perspective here. This is a battle that on average takes around 20 minutes to finish. That, combined with the fact that you likely won't beat him on your first try, quickly pushes Galleon's one-liner from sounding cool on the first couple listens straight into Florida Georgia line levels of irritating.
Time to die.
You need to shut the fuck up!
And while the incessant repetition of the same 3 words may be the most directly irritating thing about dealing with this albino asshole, it's not the worst. Oh no. We're talking about something that you can't just get rid of by muting the game and playing some hypocrisy. See, after the battle's over, you still need to go up the final staircase and snap Luna out of her brainwashing in order to beat the game. Well, in order to do that, you need to bust out an item that never had any in-game use beforehand. And all the game ever does to point you towards it is to have the other characters leave vague hints as to what you need to do. If you go up the staircase without using it, you die instantly. And if you neglected to save the game before then, you'd have to repeat the battle all over again. Okay, now I'm starting to remember why I wanted his head on a stick all those years ago. Man, if you thought I was hard on Galleon back in the day, you should have seen how hard the entire Countdown community was on Jasper Batt Jr. Everyone, including me, tore into this motherfucker, and a lot of it was well earned. And the biggest reason why he got so much hate was because of the battle against him. It had 3 forms. The first was alright, but the second and third form both had something really horrid about them. Pizza Batman here is where the bulk of the rage towards Jasper came from, because this is a form that's just flat out broken. His attacks are insanely difficult to dodge, he teleports away from you constantly, and he can insta-kill you if he hits you in the direction of one of the arena's windows. Even on lower difficulties, it's something you'll have to go through countless tries in order to get through. And while the final form may not be anywhere near as bad, it doesn't exactly redeem the battle either. You have to attack Big Boy here up close, which can be quite cumbersome when you have to deal with both a wonky camera lifted straight out of Sonic Adventure and punches that give you very little room to dodge. It's really not hard to see why this buck-toothed cretin got shat on by so many people. Naruto is one of those franchises that people tend to either love or hate. I never had much to say one way or the other, but as someone who had a close friend who was really into it in its heyday, there is one thing I can say about it. The Clash of Ninja Revolution games were really good. It's not every day you find a licensed fighting game as great as these. But seeing as how unbalanced bosses are par for the course for fighting games, this series has a few that are sure to get on your nerves. And there's one in particular that's right up there with the genre's most aggravating. Deidara. You probably wouldn't expect a Naruto game to have a boss that would lead you to gnash your teeth as hard as this guy, and yet this asswipe's more broken than Matt Hardy.
Delete!
His AI is unfathomably cheap. He teleports encounters constantly at all the right times and spams explosive paper animals. There will often be times where you get hit by multiple amounts of them at once. I couldn't find any footage of this online, but no joke, if he sends out enough of those paper animals at once, they can take out your entire health bar. This happened to me about a decade ago when my friend and I were in the middle of an hour-long marathon trying to beat him. For the longest time, it was Kabuto from Revolution 2 that got under my skin. But even though you had to jump through more hoops to beat him, his AI was never this nasty, and his tactics were never this unfair. But as aggravating as Deidara may be, I can name you a boss that's worse. We interrupt this program to bring you Dishonorable Mentions! The Hell Guards from Doom. Tedious and frustrating, especially when there's two of them double teaming you. 343 Guilty Spark from Halo 3. Yeah, it's intentionally anticlimactic, but I hardly see that as an excuse. Queen Slug for a Butt from Earthworm Jim. Boring and redundant. The Larry's Lament from Super Meat Boy. And people thought Little Horn was bad. Kintaro from Mortal Kombat 2. One of the cheapest fighting game bosses out there. The Water Dragon from Lunar Silver Star Story. Only one of your party members has any real means of inflicting damage to it. Man, Ramus was useless. Brock from Pokemon Yellow. Were it not for the one per franchise rule, I would have put him only a spot or two below Whitney. Having the first gym leader in the game be one that your only possible starter Pokemon had no means of dealing any real damage to made absolutely no sense. Not as a kid, and especially not today. And it's not like you can hook your Pikachu up to a generator either. You want to hear about a truly infuriating boss battle? Well, Ninja Gaiden's got one. Even in an era where most games, including the all-time classics, were hard as nails, Ninja Gaiden's final boss gauntlet stands out among the most relentlessly rage-inducing finales of the entire NES library. And it's the second boss in that gauntlet, the Jaquio, I don't care how you pronounce it, that truly makes it apparent. It's a battle that doesn't appear to have much going on if you've only ever seen footage of it online, but actually playing it is a monumental test of patience. The dude moves back and forth across the screen while firing homing projectiles at you. Homing projectiles that I should point out are hard to make go away unless you're really masochistic and spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to make them miss you. What's worse than that is that landing any hits on him without bumping into him and taking a ton of damage yourself requires movement tighter than Gary Holt's guitar playing. And what's worse than that is that if you wind up dying, you have to go through 3 stages of the game just to get another shot at him.
Are you fucking kidding me? I'm all the way back at stage 6-1? That's fucking horseshit. You die on the boss, you go all the way back? You die, you go back.
And this includes stage 6-2 of the game, one of the most agonizingly difficult video game levels ever programmed. It's one of the most notoriously bullshit stipulations of any boss battle out there, and it's what bumps this up from simply being NES hard into the category of absolute torture. Deidara's AI may be much stronger, but at least never had to jump through any hoops to get a rematch with him. Difficulty on its own doesn't make me label a boss fight as bad, but when a boss is this cheap, this hard to build any momentum against, and doles out such an unforgivably massive penalty for losing, I don't exactly wind up looking at it through a rosy lens. I only ever wind up looking back at it with complete disdain. Fuck this battle, cue the outro.